This hatchling sea turtle is 3 inches long and weighs less than 8 ounces. Yet, it's about to embark on a series of migration journeys that will span decades and thousands of miles in the open sea. There, the looming dangers and challenges of a turtle's odyssey are surpassed only by the wonders of its life cycle and the creative power of God. This story begins in hidden nests, buried in beaches from Central America to the southeastern coast of the United States. After incubating in the warm sand for about 6 weeks, a new generation of determined little reptiles battle their way into the world. Guided only by instinct, the young turtles frantically race toward the incoming surf. Then swim non-stop for the next 48 hours in an attempt to escape predatory birds, crabs, and fish that line the shore. But immediate survival is not their only objective. During these first 2 days, they will undergo critical preparations necessary for life in a vast and unfamiliar liquid universe.
Navigating in the open ocean is not easy at all. So from the moment a turtle hatches, there are elements imprinted in that turtle's head that tell it not only about things that it needs to learn, but places that it needs to go automatically. It's there. It's in the system.
Sea turtles migrate through the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, usually alone and without the benefit of significant visual landmarks. To navigate, they rely on a biological system calibrated to work in concert with an invisible shield that surrounds the Earth. Our planet is constantly bombarded by high-energy particles emitted from the sun. We are protected from this deadly barrage by a magnetic field that extends more than 40,000 miles into space. This phenomenon has been compared to an enormous bar magnet, with field lines that flow upward from the southern hemisphere and then wrap around the Earth. Each line intersects a different point on the Earth's surface at a specific angle and intensity. They are strongest at the poles and weakest at the equator. Together, they create a distinct pattern that can be charted as coordinates for the latitude and longitude of any location on the planet.
From the moment they hatch, we think that they may be imprinting on magnetic fields. They're able to detect both intensity as well as the angle of inclination for the potential to imprint on that particular nesting beach and a very specific latitude and longitude.
Once a turtle imprints the geomagnetic coordinates of its birthplace, it begins a journey that will lead to a feeding ground it will use throughout the rest of its life. For a turtle born in Costa Rica, for example, this home range could be a coral reef in the Dominican Republic more than 1,000 miles away. As a hatchling swims and drifts through the Caribbean, it continues to imprint a series of coordinates on a magnetic map inherited at birth and stored within its brain.
Once the turtles enter the water, they are detecting magnetic fields as they're drifting. So they're obviously picking up waypoints along their drifting existence over those first 2 years or so. And it's those waypoints that essentially they're going to use in a reverse manner when they leave the foraging grounds 15, 18, 25 years later to then make their way back essentially to the nesting beach.
The young turtle's development from hatchling into juvenile includes an increasing reliance on an array of internal compasses embedded in its head. Microscopic cells enriched with crystals of magnetite react to the Earth's magnetic field by aligning north.
It's a little tiny magnet. And typically what magnetite will do is it will align like the needle of a compass. It tells them what their heading is, and it tells them something about where they are at that moment.
So they need to be able to know what direction they're moving, but they also need to be able to know where they are at any point in that journey.
After a turtle reaches the feeding grounds, it will often stay for a decade or more while growing to maturity. Depending upon its species, an adult can weigh from 80 pounds to nearly a ton. And when it is ready to reproduce, the turtle sets its course for the beach where it was born. Throughout this return trip, it will again rely upon its internal compass and map. To find its way home, the turtle follows the coordinates it originally imprinted years earlier, but this time in reverse order. Then, when it nears land, it identifies the specific location of its natal beach with another navigational aid, its sense of smell.
Turtles may actually be detecting certain cues, that is chemicals in the water that may have come from the nesting beach, molecules of mud or sediments. They've had to lock that information up somewhere, but then when they turn around after 25 years to come back to the nesting beach, that's the point at which that information has to come back to the brain and say, okay, remember those scents, remember those molecules from 25 or 30 years ago, and now is the time to start thinking about and looking for those cues. And that may be another way for turtles as they get closer and closer to the nesting beach to recognize that they're in the right spot.
Every year, this scene plays out on tropical beaches throughout the world. Now fully grown, the adult females crawl out of the ocean toward the exact location where they once emerged as hatchlings. They will dig nests and each lay hundreds of eggs, then re-enter the sea to follow an imprinted map back to their feeding grounds on a migration cycle they will repeat dozens of times during the next half-century.
As a scientist, I love being able to ask questions about intricately designed systems and pursue those answers until we get to some kind of conclusion. This whole idea of migrating thousands of kilometers across open oceans. It's very difficult to imagine, but turtles are still nevertheless able to find their way back to sometimes within meters of where the nesting beach may have been.
When we pause to consider the biological design of a sea turtle or any other living organism, the detail and precision so evident in nature can inspire us intellectually and spiritually. And just as we applaud the work of a gifted scientist, architect, or engineer, may we also acknowledge the Creator God, who called into existence every creature that inhabits the earth, with the brilliance of His mind and the power of His Word.